Thai sabaki and basic Aikido movement.
Okay, we're here to kind of do some stuff so that it will be available online. Okay, and one of the things that I do want to cover is dojo time is not going to be available for a while because Aikido San Jose is on hiatus because of coronavirus. But a couple of things I'd like you to consider. Okay, one, I'd like us to work a bit more at thinking in images, like Albert Einstein did. Okay, which you can do. That ignites what you call, or comes out of your imagination. All right? And the imagination comes out of what you call more what we are, from I to self to a more true self, all the way to a soul spirit. So things like imagination, intention come out of a much more original sense of who we are. So one of the things I thought we would cover is Thai sabaki. Okay? And so we're going to demonstrate just a little bit, but we're going to right here give you what Einstein would call a thought experiment. Okay? And this is something you can do just watching this. You don't need to put a gi on. Okay? You're going to, for example, stand. You're going to visualize a wall. That wall has a crack in it. I can't go in this way because I'm like a closed door. But I can, by turning, go this way. And as I go, the crack gets narrower. I'm on the other side of the wall. I approach another wall with an identical crack. I can't go through it this way. I go through it this way. Okay? So what are the things, for example, here, basic Aikido Bugi comes with a thrusting motion. Okay? Now, I'm in reaction to that, so I try to go back, or I try to step to the side. Okay? We're going to actually go forward and step into that crack. Okay? These are changes I'm sure Ueshiba Sensei got from the study of the spear. The spear, just saying that is a spear, is a piercing weapon, can also cut. So if I'm in this position, all I can do is either react or I can block. Okay? So I want to have the ability to change the posture. Now here's he's coming in. What we're doing is we're doing the same thing here. See, right? I'm not just we're gonna meet his force with counter force. I'm going to allow his force to go that way, at the same point give him a bit of input that way. So this is a basic inward motion. Okay? Now the things that are not quite apparent on that is, one, when you are walking through that crack, your hips and core are turning in a natural way. You can't get through the crack this way. Okay? Now if he grabs my wrist, I'm looking at the wall, and I'm trying to get through it in a square chest position I can. Now, hold firm, but see, when I am moving through that crack, my hips are moving in a natural way. There's a flexible sense of ground. And so the motion through that crack, as that crack is narrower, for me is Thai sabaki. It's body changing. However, to understand that, you can't give it a label. Yurimi, Tenkan. Yurimi, Tenkan. If he is coming in this motion here, like a striking motion, this is good. Okay. Very fluid. But really what I'm doing with that is, now here, right? I'm stepping into that crack. Okay? Irimi is an entering motion. You go forward. But you don't go forward in a reactional sense. Now he may come in this way, right? But I have position here. Boom. Boom. Now what I'm doing here is stepping into another crack on the other side, and another wall, but it's a spiral crack. So I want you to see how the actual movements of Aikido come from understanding the body changes. One of the easiest things to do is visualize yourself as a closed door. You are in a triangular posture. Now you're a semi-open door. Now you're an almost totally open door. To be, I would probably have to tear the door off its hinges, but those changes in a very natural, fluid way. Okay? And the ability to move the feet gives you the ability to go into what I call more of a spiral crack, or conversely, move this way. Now, if you're moving straight or entering, really what it is that everything is that spiral, but it's a bigger spiral, so it appears like it's a line. Okay? Now, one of the things that happens, for example, is that we create surprise. Okay? Okay, so now that crack becomes very, very small. Okay? That's like boom, boom. So the ability to adapt to situations that all of a sudden is unexpected. Boom, 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 boom. All right? So when I'm going into those tiny cracks, I'm visualizing myself to be more like the Marvel superhero Ant-Man. Okay, in other words, in a very short, small increment of space-time, what I have to be able to do is make those changes and go quantum. The larger ones are more like what I would call Einsteinian, larger spaces, light years, so to speak. The smaller changes are more what we call quantum, and they're a little bit more chaotic. But as you start to understand this, you also start to understand this. Both of those, or this one, involve the changes we're talking about. Okay? Okay? Now, one of the things that we also encounter here is the fact that Aikido is primarily a striking art, because it really comes from the cutting motion of a sword or the piercing motion of a spear. And without that, your hands, if he's coming in this way, boom. These are what's called attending movements. Now, those attending movements are oftentimes seen in contradiction to the fact Aikido is an art of peace. Okay, so I look at it this way. Okay? The striking movements are like an acupuncturist's needles. Okay, so he's somebody, for example, who's tightened up and looking, he's like a diseased heart. Well, I need to put a needle in somewhere in order to get it back into balance. Okay? Now you'll also notice what I'm really doing is kind of stepping backwards into the spiral crack. Now right here I move too linearly, that opens it, but off of that original distraction. Now here I'm putting other needles in. May not just be that one point. Now right about this particular point, I try to twist the wrist and he's very solid. So I need to remember to rotate my hips like I am going to step through another spiral crack on the other side. Right? Now that crack starts to straighten out a bit. So most of the movements of Aikido are to teach us how to move freely within, I would say, multiple dimensions. Okay, so what I'm talking about is pretty much just what we call physical movement. But let's say he's coming in a little bit right here, And let's say he's very aggressive or he freezes. If he's aggressive, I want to make sure I distract him before he can hit. If he's in a frozen state, I'm going to distract him to open him up to do the motion. Now right here, we're right at this point here where be solid on me. So don't twist the wrist, rotate your hips. And then turn the wrist. Now right about here, my back is to a crack. I'm going to step through that crack. You may stand up, adjust it, try to get in my face. Now this is the important one. Not to put your weight here. But you see, I'm still squeezing through that crack, aren't I? Going backwards. And that's the knee cue. Okay? So most changes, see that physical techniques are just a guideline. But to understand things like Tai Sabaki, which the Doshu said was very important, you can't rely just on your dojo training. You must investigate them, and you must learn to think in images. Each technique in Aikido is really a problem you're supposed to solve in space-time. It's also a problem that we're supposed to deal with in terms of identity. Who am I? I'm somebody practicing a form in a very rote way. Okay? I have to know where my hands and feet go. I need to know the name of the technique and learn both the role of uke and nagi. That's a given. But there's a particular place past that. Ueshiba Sensei studied primarily with Takeda Sosaku, Daito Ryu Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. His major period of study was 1 month in Hokkaido. And they had other interactions, obviously, but out of that, look what came. Now, he had other influences and, not just the physical arts that he studied, but out of that. So a lot of his understanding had to come out of his own understanding of himself, his ability to set up thought experiments which come out of imagination. Okay, so for example here, right here my back is to that wall. I'm going to step backwards into that crack. You see how the hips move? Now we're in a position right here where he's squeezing into that crack with me. All right? And right here we come into more of an open room if he's coming back towards me. There's that solution. Now we'll go through this again. Remember, we're at that place here where you don't twist the wrist, you rotate the hips. Now we're creating another wall. I'm going to step through that wall into a spiral crack. And now my back is to another wall in a spiral crack, and I'm going to squeeze through. When I move that way, there's a natural fluid sense of ground. And the hips rotate naturally. I'm not reacting to his attack. Okay, now initially getting that to the point where you can respond quickly. Let's say it comes in quickly, you go this way, go this way. There's more application speed. So it's important to not just be in the thought experiment, but Mr. Einstein left it up to other people to do the computations and math to prove his theories right. He just put himself in various questions about how the universe really was, way past Newton. And he created thought experiments, put himself in those thought experiments, came up with solutions. In fact, people are still proving Einstein's theories right. He let the other people do the computations. Now, the actual movements, you are in a body working those computations or equations. As he's coming in, first of all, I'm going to that interval before he can freeze and do something or attack me quickly. I'm going to step back and take his attention. All right, now we can finish this. All right, but since we're practicing this motion, now instead of setting, I'm going to be squeezing into that spiral crack. right? Which allows my heel to come here. Instead of twisting the wrist, I'm going to rotate my hips. Now I'm facing another wall with another spiral back. That's would be the entering motion, but if this stands up, now here this is important. This is also, what do? My back is to that. I'm going to squeeze through it. Okay? And when you do that, you will acquire a sense of the motion of the hips, a fluid sense of ground. And there's also a martial sense. You see, I don't want to learn the movements totally as an isolated thing. All right? For example, I know that, but he does come in right there, boom. All right, so I get a sense now right here, boom. There are other things we can begin to do. Right? I'm acquiring a sense of my own vulnerabilities, which means I'm stepping into emotion, and he has certain capabilities as an attacker. Now we're doing this not in a competitive way. He's helping me to perfect my ability to take my imagination thought experiment into like the mathematical equations, okay? Now I'm trying to prove Einstein wrong or right. I am in the actual body of the proof, which is the training you get in the dojo, all right? Over here, all right, now if he, for example, freezes here, what do I do? I reboot. What is a reboot? We're both in the same spaceship. Now we're going to go into warp drive together. That's about the sense. There's a sense of we're in a common flow. That's what Aikido, I-ki, his ki, my ki, are in a connected flow. And like there's some degree of free will, right? So right at that particular point, I'm extending, I'm still doing the squeezing to that craft, but with a little bit more of a grounded dense feeling. Okay, now, right about here, for example, you rotate the hip, so that opens that up. Okay, if he stays down too much or locks his arm, I switch to right hip. Okay, right? So there's a series where we learn the forms one after another, okay? But really they're meant to be a series of problems, and after a while you can shift from problem to problem in that thought experiment. And one of the major things that we're trying to solve is the Tai sabaki. Now, my understanding of the Tai sabaki, of course, is a principle in martial arts movement, not purely Aikido-wise, but Thai body, sabaki, sabaku. Mary Heine Sensei once told me that sabaki, is not just a turn, but it's turning with the idea of evading. Okay, so if he's coming here, I'm just going to turn. But here, I'm going to turn not to evade. So for me, come on in, we turn to establish a connection. Okay, so for me, I don't turn to evade, I turn to establish a tie to bond my flow and his flow. So I don't think about getting away from the spear, okay, the spear thrust. I think about more uniting with the source of the spear thrust, which is him. Unless the spear is on the ground and I fall on it, it's not going to do me any good. But when he picks the spear up, the spear is an extension of his own mind, his own consciousness, his own intention. So as that's coming in here, then what we're going to do right here, now here, if I'm in this lax state, he hits or pushes. Okay, so we're going to be, come on, we're standing in quicksand together. All right, that's the feeling there. So you start to get solutions. You realize that your mind, imagination affects your body. So in an energetic sense, my body becomes more like sand that I can move in waves. And here, he's standing in the sand, but he's kind of sinking a little bit. And all right. And so right about here, if he does come in, all right. So this, as you start to think in images, you start to get into body field. As you get into the body field, you start to realize your body exists in a variety of dimensions. In terms of energy, some of the things are like liquid. Sand is interesting, for example. He grabs a wrist, all of a sudden there's a sandstorm. Sorry. Okay. All right, or right about here. This is chocolate ocean. All right. Right about here, there's a martial sense. All right, now, when you're doing this stuff, remember, we're not here to hurt people. But again, he's got a sleepy liver. I'm an acupuncturist, I gotta put a needle somewhere. Get that back into a little bit more balance with the rest of his system. So I think of the striking arts, not so much as combat as healing. We all have our slothful, lazy, opinionated locked places, and the atemi are like the stick of a Zen master is supposed to whack us and wake us up when we're kind of sleeping in meditation. Okay? So Aikido these days, that's not something that is taught probably the way that it used to be taught. Okay? That's okay. Aikido sort of graduated in another phase, but as a martial sense, the atemi are very important, and maybe not in the ways that they're supposed to. For example, this technique doesn't work, so I'm going to hit him because it's like boom, boom, boom. All right. All right. So if it goes boom, boom, he's coming in this direction. The movements are swift. They're fluid, and they're to some degree not planned. Okay, his movements are like we're in a quartet, and he's the combination of the drummer, the bass player, and the piano player setting my chord structure. And I'm the soloist playing off of that. Okay, I can just improvise on my own, but it's kind of neat to have like 3 or 4 other factors going on. The beat of the drummer, the chord sequence, and the rhythm of the bass player. And then the piano player that's setting the multi-level chords. And then I've got to pick up various beats and patterns within that. Okay? So right about here, so I can look at that motion. When we got that motion, see there's that there. If he stands up, it's like boom, there's that motion. If he locks his arm, there's the Rokyo motion. If he's too strong to do that, then all of a sudden I step behind here, there's the Urinagi motion. Okay? So that's all Tai sabaki also, because you are in this state where you are simply in calm, which is again, I'm not calm. Calm is a product of your imagination that becomes a body field. And so a lot of what we're trying to do here with this is that, yes, there's a lot of unrest in the world. Political, right now global in terms of the coronavirus, and that's creating a lot of thought patterns and a lot of stress. And so we really need to get back to a more original sense of ourselves. I to self, self to a more true sense of itself, that true sense going even deeper into what might become a soul, spirit, original consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Well, Sensei talked in terms of the gods and goddesses, which probably is what we are at that particular level. But we get caught up in the world of I, which is a very reactionary world, that is really supported by a stream of consciousness or thoughts, which are very, very reactive. And it's sort of addictive, because we get caught up in it, give fear a name, and all of a sudden we are wrapped up in that conversation. So in Aikido we're saying, calm. That's adaptive and alive. All right? If he wants to come in, see, I'm still squeezing through that crack. If he wants to stand up right here, boom. Now that crack becomes a spiral staircase down. When we can do that, we are thinking in images, which promotes more of a sense that we are in body field. Einstein was a scientist, but he still had to feel what was going on in his thought experiments. He wasn't just racing around in imaginary thoughts. He was in imagination, which is the most powerful force that we have. And what fueled all that was a strong intention that he had to solve certain problems in space-time that the physics of his time had not explained. He was very curious. Okay, it's very open. And I think Shiba Sensei was very much like Einstein. And it's very easy to fall into, we call it the patterns of the training, which patterns of the training. Oops. You see what we're doing here? Right? Patterns of the training, 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 patterns of the training. But we must go further, because right now, for example, a lot of the dojos are closed. You're going to have an awful lot of time on your hands. And so what we're doing with these videos is just to kind of prompt you to look at certain things, and we will be putting out more. Okay? Okay, thank you. Thank you.